Isn't that cool?
Whoa.
Yeah, there's a half a PSI pressure drop in the room, so that we can run 2,000 brake horsepower with open headers, and there's still fresh air in there for the operator. That's for. It has full data logging on it, and you can watch the data logging here as well as the screen outside. So if you need to work inside the room while the engine's running, and then we have another cable that comes out for the engine control system with a laptop, so we can program it on the desk while it's running.
Did you say 7 times a minute?
7 times a minute.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, look at the makeup area. That's the makeup area. Look up in there. We're talking some CFM.
Yeah.
You can actually come over here where the exhaust is, and you can let go of a rag, and it'll suck the rag out and shoot. So this is what's called a cooling tower, and this has an inner and outer jacket, and it controls the temperature of the engine by refreshing with cold water from a water tap, basically. And then outside there's another big tank you'll see, it's to absorb the heat from the engine and exchange it for the brake, because it's a water brake. This is what's called brake horsepower. If everybody doesn't know how brake horsepower works, we have a science lesson today.
All right.
Okay. So this is basically a torque converter, and the torque converter flows in reverse. So basically what we do is we hold the engine back from accelerating more. So let's say we're going to go to 5,000 RPM. We're going to flow enough water into this torque converter to stop the engine from revving. So we're braking the engine. That's where the term brake horsepower comes from. Now when you brake this thing, it wants to twist itself out of the frame. Right? It wants to rotate because the engine's rotating, right?
Yes.
Okay, so over here we have a strain gauge. A little rod right here. A little rod end on it. It's a strain gauge. If you guys don't know what a strain gauge is, it's a piece of wire that when it's stretched, the voltage changes.
Wow.
Okay, so it's in a metal block. We know the stress of the metal block. As we stretch the metal block, the strain gauge gets stretched, the voltage changes. That tells the computer how much torque is coming out of the engine. Okay, so the engine tries to rotate the frame. This is our anchor. There's one little pin right here. Holds back 2,000 foot-pounds of torque.
Wow.
I don't want to
Okay, and stretches the strain gauge. We then mathematically calculate horsepower. Horsepower is torque times RPM divided by 5252. You can't measure horsepower. You measure torque and use math to get horsepower, in case you guys didn't know that. I get calls all the time, by the way, in technical. I want one of those chips that makes more torque. I don't want more horsepower. Like, well, sir, you can't get one without the other. They're mathematically tied together. I'm really sorry. Okay, so what a chassis dynamometer does is it takes torque times wheel speed to give you road horsepower. But again, it's a math calculation. You're measuring torque at the rear wheels. You multiply that times the roller speed, that gives you road horsepower. Okay, so horsepower is a calculation of the amount of work accomplished over a given amount of time, is what it really is. Torque is the actual thrust or force coming out of an engine. Torque is also what breaks drivetrain parts, not horsepower. In case you guys didn't know that, okay? So I'll tell you something a little bit about the guy who broke the differential, and I'm not picking on him, and I'm picking on you. Okay, so what breaks drivetrain parts, by the way, is normally, let's say an engine puts out 300 foot-pounds of torque. And let's say your first gear ratio is a 3-to-1 gear ratio change. Normally they're closer to 4, but the math is easy, so it's 900. Then your final driving differential is also 3-to-1. 9 times 3 is 27. When you get to the rear axles, you have 2,700 pound-feet of torque coming out of the differential in first gear. 2,700, not 3, right? Okay, now you rev the engine up, take the slack out of the drivetrain. Everybody ever take the slack out of something and snap it? And then snap it when you let go of the clutch. That spikes 2 or 3 times. Now we're talking 5,000 to 7,500 pound-feet of torque goes through your subframe carrier differential. This is why the subframe carriers get ripped out of the cars. This is why the differentials blow up. This is also why BMW puts that little delay valve in your clutch pedal that you read about in the message boards. Yeah, the guys all want to take out. Yeah. The whole reason they did that was so you can't shock load the drivetrain and blow the freaking differential up in the subframe.
You gotta dump the engine power on the...
Right. So what they did is they made it so it only come out so fast, so it damps the release. And then you guys remove the valve, and then you rip the subframe of the car, and you told BMW, well, I think you should warranty this. Come on. Okay. This is not BMW's fault, okay? All right. So I recommend you don't take the valve on. It's there for a reason. I also recommend you don't rev your engine up and sidestep the clutch. You will break things. It's just a matter of when you're going to break it, how many times they do it. Every time you what's called fatigue lock. The engine metal has a fatigue lock. I'll get it out. And every time you flex the metal, you fatigue it. It's like taking a coat hanger and bending it back and forth. It can be a gear, it can be an axle, it doesn't make a difference what it is. You're going to work it back and forth until it flexes and breaks. And you say, well, I did it once, it didn't break. I did it twice, it didn't break. I might have even done it 1,000 times, it didn't break. And all of a sudden I was driving on the road and it broke. Well, it didn't break because you were driving on the road at 30 miles an hour. It broke from the last 1,000 times you dumped the clutch. Fatiguing the metal. Okay.
That's
Push the red button for me, please.
Steve, is this guy all right?